Hello everyone, here. Today I want to talk about accessibility. So this video here mostly is a cutout from my stream I did yesterday. It's like a long stream, like 5 hours, right? So it's a short cutout talking about accessibility, right? But before that, let me give you a brief, where I'm coming from, right? And kind of summarize the too long to read kind of summary. So first of all, I of course have worked, in game industry, in IT industry and so on, right, for many years. I have worked with accessibility. I think primarily in the localization way, because I have worked with English to Japanese, Japanese like English to Arabic and so on. So I have to like left and right and swap stuff, and you have to like make it accessible for other cultures to understand it and blah 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 and so on. Right? So mostly in that way. But I also have worked with the government, right, in a non-gaming system, right, IT systems. For example, the military, and I worked a little bit for electric government, energy sector, and so on. Right? So it has to always be accessible, right? Of course, for their systems, right? Especially the government, of course, hire a lot of people, right, in like a wheelchair or whatever, right? But also have other, disabilities, right? It's quite common, right? In the government, right? Veterans and so on. So it's bad. But anyway, it's a huge issue. Same thing with Sekiro, but even more so in Elden Ring. People keep misusing the word accessibility, right? What it actually means. Accessibility, I say it in this manner, right? I hope people understand me here. I think it's very basic here, right? Accessibility is like adding a wheelchair ramp to a house, right? But let's say you're gonna do an exam, right? So you're going to school, you're gonna do an exam in the school building, right? Accessibility would be having that wheelchair ramp so you can enter the school building, right? It doesn't actually make the exam easier. It doesn't make the exam, of course, get weird, Elden Ring easier, right? It doesn't make the actual challenge, so to speak, easier. Your knowledge of the subject matter, right, isn't changed, but it adds a way for you to be able to enter said building so you can do the exam, right? And that's the huge difference people have to understand, right? Accessibility has nothing to do with making anything easier. It's giving the user, or the player in this case then, right? Giving the player access, right? To be able to have the same functionality, whatever, the same, experience, the same test or whatever. That's accessibility, right? So making it easier, that the user is about, doesn't actually make it more accessible, right? Only indirectly, of course, an easier game is more accessible, right? Generally speaking. So I think it's a huge issue that immediately, and I covered a lot more, of course, in this clip of me streaming here, because I got an hour, it's just the topic, right? But the main issue, right, is that they have some claims to accessibility issue in Elden Ring. Like, I would say one thing I agree on is that, for example, the tutorial. Why is the tutorial not, not more prompt in your face, right? Skipping the tutorial should absolutely be possible. Absolutely. Like in any kind of functionality, in any kind of game, whatever, you should always be allowed to skip the tutorial. I mean, I hate personally having to replay a game, tutorial games, right? But at the same time, in this game, you can miss it, right? I did personally in a play game. It didn't matter because I played Sekiro and so on before, right? But I certainly think that, for example, the tutorial should have been more openly prompted in the user's, start, right? And say, do you want to do it? Yes or no? If you say no, you can return later, right? That's one thing. There's some other stuff too, coming to the UX and so on, right, that I dislike in the game. For example, if your horse is down torrent and you want to revive the horse, right, because a flask, the game is going to ask you, do you want to press the flask now to revive your horse? And it's going to be, default value is going to be no. If they then press the button, press the button again to get your horse upright, I hate that shit, okay? I'm like, oh my god, I'm fucking draconic tree settler, or double tree settler. It's giving my horse back, right? You know what I mean? So there is some huge issues in the game, though. That being said, I actually personally know the person that tweeted this UX stuff. Someone I addressed in the video. So I'm going to be a little coy on that, because I do actually know who this person is, right? Work in the industry. Not too much here. But it's a little bit like... My brief take on it is that I feel that it's a lack of empathy, right? Honestly. In his case, it's like, I want to make a game, and he's like, if people don't like what I make, they're wrong, right? Yeah. And I don't like that. I covered it much more in the video, of course, but I say briefly here again that I feel like that's kind of like saying that I'm gonna make, let's say, a fighting game, right? And people like strategy games, they're idiots. That's kind of take on it, because he's working on a game. Because I know exactly what he's working on, not exactly, but I know generally what he's working on. Right? He's making a game, right? Taking about, in a much more, let's say, mainstream. Let's call it a mainstream casual game, right? And it's like, they like a game that's hard over there? That's wrong, Yeah, it's kind of complaining that people are playing the wrong genre, right? It's a weird thing. And the game he's making, the UX is not less or more important, but it's different, right? Because UX is actually it's a very broad term. I have been a UX designer used as him. So we have the same title, or my latest title is like my lead service designer and so on, which is basically everything. UX is a very open term, right? So I've had the exact same job as this person for that matter, basically, right? So I know very much detail what it's about, but UX is a very, very broad term. And generally speaking, right, UX can be everything from the UI to how fast do you level, right? Like UX can also be how fast do you level up, or where can you grind and be in the game, or should this boss be here or here, right? UX is very, very broad, not just like the game design. But anyway, here's my video, guys. Subscribe to the right, and of course check out the actual longer stream if you're interested, and follow me on Twitch to actually follow me streaming the game. I used to do Twitch, sometimes YouTube. But this long streams now, I try to do Twitch mostly. They have like bad eyesight, so it's hard for me to see if an enemy is hiding here, you know what I mean? So I want some indicator for that. But if you have an indicator, you're obviously reducing the negativity. I mean, most dominant in the game, with the catacombs, you have enemies hiding in every goddamn corner, right? So by adding that, you're making the game way easier. And accessibility and difficulty is completely unrelated. What is accessibility? Another thing. Oh, that's the better in the video too, but one thing that I find silly too is that they're making accessibility to be like, but I want to know if an enemy is standing here. Yeah, but then you make the game easier. And I have to say that in this person's defense though, they are making this argument to some extent, because say we're building a house, right? And to enter the house, as earlier, but enter the house is like adding a wheelchair ramp, okay? Like my grandmother, she can walk, but she likes to, she has a little issues, right? So she has some kind of assisted, right? So equipment. So having a wheelchair ramp for her to enter the house, okay, or something else like a roller or whatever, right? Yeah, okay, that helps her, right? That accessibility, okay? Because the functionality is to get into the house, right? But for example, what you usually see, honestly, I'm being a little hyperbolic, but what you usually see, right? People saying accessibility is bad in Elden Ring, or gaming, every game need to have this thing, right? That's basically like entering the house and then complaining that, okay, why is the house white for, right? Or like, here behind me is aqua. Why is that blue for, right? Why is that like, why is the painting on the wall blue or something? It could have been a red wall. Like that's kind of where they go with it, and it doesn't make any sense. So, again here, I just found this dungeon here, right? Korea Manor, I just got here by jumping over this wall here. You have to like skip over this wall with a horse. And, I like in this game, I like a lot of this is a bonus dungeon, right? I don't think the dungeon has any relevance to the storyline. Maybe it has, I don't think so. I'm just here for some XP, some loot, right? Probably. I am here in the main story, Volcana Manor. I haven't done the boss yet, so I'm doing a few quests. Then I wanted to just explore a bit, right? Because I've seen this manor here, running around it, right? Like going up here and so on. So I just imagine that, well, maybe how do I get there? Okay, so that's right here. It's like you can jump here. You can jump from this direction here, but you can't jump from this direction. And then I was like, I remember there's a wall here. It's like maybe you just jump over the wall, right, or around the wall, or something. So I tried that, and now I'm here, right? And when I see this video and they're complaining about accessibility, it's absurd to me because I just straight up lying what the word actually means, right? But I think it's more a mudding thing of the word, because they're saying that this game is bad because you can find a dungeon or a castle or whatever, right? And you don't know if the castle is relevant for the main story, basically, or like that's not accessibility. They're nothing to do with it, right? That's like complaining again, getting into dungeon saying that why is the wall blue? It should be green instead. You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense. And that's really how it is, because again, picture the most basic concept of accessibility. There's like getting that wheelchair, right? You're in this house. You want to enter this house, right? Just let's say you couldn't walk. You're in a wheelchair. You want to enter this building, right? Okay. So a staircase, like my grandmother, she has issues with staircase, okay? My grandma, she can walk half-ass once, right? And she has issues with stairs, massively, okay? But if you have like a slide instead, right? Like a slope, she can actually walk upward, right? She can walk stairs too if you help her as well. So this would be like a hall for my grandmother, right? To enter. That's accessibility, right? Like adding like a slope, right? Not she can enter, you know what I mean? Not she can enter. This how to enter. However, if my grandmother gets into the house and complains about, okay, yeah, again, then why is the wall this colorful? Why is this and so on? Yeah, that's the same thing, right? And I think this is so strange and how muddy the word accessibility sort of gets right. For a few years now, especially even more so Elden, because people keep trying to make it to be about, oh no, this game is like mean, right? It's locking away players and so on. But anyway, I think one thing that really bothered me seeing this clip was, it's unfortunate because in the beginning of the clip, I watched maybe 10 minutes of this conversation they had, these two disabled person, right? There was more accessibility. And the first minute, it's gonna say it, the first minute I do agree, right? Like the game could have had some accessibility, actual accessibility, right? And that's why that's almost the worst part of videos, because you see someone, you know, saying actual issues, and then they mud it up, right, with 9 or 10 other stuff that isn't actual issues that's intended by the game, and then, you know, more people are gonna ignore all of it. Yeah, either people are gonna ignore all of it, most people are gonna say like that is stupid, ignore everything, right? Or people are gonna go the direction, oh yes, everything needs to be included, right? And we completely ruin the game, right? So it's either like, yeah, so it's that's why you have to be very specific. We're talking about the words, right? You can't just change the word's meaning because you actually want more, and that is, it's again a way to complain the game is too hard or whatever, right? But just to point out here, I want to say that the few complaints they had that made sense, one thing I will agree on was the text, okay? So I think that's fair. That is definitely fair. Like, it's fair that, okay, if you play this game right, why couldn't that text be like twice that size, right? Why couldn't you like easier change the text? These buttons are in the left ear, they could have been bigger and so on. That stuff I can definitely live with, living with. But like, yeah, like why not? It's hard to read, right? If you have bad eyesight, you know, zoom it up, right? And typical stuff in accessibility when it comes to interfaces like red, green, right? Red, green, blindness, and so on. Yeah, stuff like that, certainly. Because if you can 10 times that font if you want to, how does that affect the gameplay? It doesn't. So that's fine, right? Stuff like that is kind of how you start the conversation, and all that I agree with. But yeah, that game there. But then they quickly go into like, oh, the game is bad because like you can face Margit, right? You know, Margit is here, right? Yeah, you can face Margit, the Fell Omen, in like first hour of the game, and that's a bad game design because then you die and you don't know you should be there. Or you can die from Tree Sentinel. Yeah, you can fight. They talk about the Tree Sentinel here, yeah. Or you can fight Tree Sentinel, and he's too hard or whatever. I mean, come on, that is just ridiculous. That's part of the game. It's not part of accessibility, right? That's not accessibility. That's part of the game. You go out in the world, in an open world game. You find a boss in the path, right? And you don't have to fight the boss. That is not an accessibility issue. That's just like a strategy issue. You want to try to fight the boss level 1, or then come back later. It's nothing to do with accessibility. And like for example, I had a very easy time finding Margit. I found Margit was very easy. It's just 3-4 attempts, or whatever. Why? Well, I had already explored this area, right? I had already explored most of this area before I got to Margit. I had even done, you know, I basically done the whole Limgrave, some of Khalid, and I think almost everything in Raya before I even got to Margit, okay? So I explored, right? Yeah, like you don't have to fight the boss immediately. You can run around, right? So saying that, oh, it's bad accessibility because you can run into hard bosses immediately, it's like, okay, but go somewhere else then, right? Again, that's part of the actual gameplay. An open world. I would agree, I suppose, if you have to fight Tristan at level 1, you couldn't avoid him. Yeah, then I guess it would be arguably the game would be too hard, right? That's not a question. But no, you can just avoid the enemy. So that's like complaining about the games being too hard. And one thing I have to say too, before I keep playing, I want to point out is that one thing I find is really strange in that video, and what is similar, is the whole concept of that idea, right? That, oh my god, it's like a strong boss next to the starting zone. That's a bad game design. That has been in, especially Japanese games, right? For 20-30 years. Okay? It's been a thing for games for years. And no one ever complained about that. Because no, it's the effing opposite. It's a good game design to have more here, especially the Tree Sentinel down here, right? That in here, this little, it's like here, yeah. That's a good game design. You know why? Because, for example, it's a random game I have, okay. Dragon Quest Heroes 2, okay, complete random. Dragon Quest Heroes 2, it's not open world, it's like a linear, more or less, I can split it. It's not a linear. But anyway, in that game, when you find the capital in the game, right, the main capital where everyone lives and so on, right, and most people are, you find this massive dragon outside the capital. He's just sleeping. It's like cute little, you know, typical Dragon Quest dragon is sleeping there, right? If you go into him, he's gonna fight you, and he's gonna kill you because you're like level 5, right? He's gonna murder you immediately. And in that game, you of course have 0 chance. Okay, 3 Sentinel, you can avoid him, right? But Dragon Quest Heroes is actually a real time. It's like the Omega Force game. But anyway, you know, it's real time, and just like you can run away from it. But you know what I mean? It's much more, you know, role playing, right? More typical Japanese role playing game. So even if it's real time, not turn based, you can't really avoid that enemy. Like, you know what I mean? It's gonna kill you, right? If you fight him, it's impossible to hurt him. So on. It's much more stat based, right? So, but basically, you can fight the dragon if you want to, right? Of course, you can't beat him. And then the idea, as a good game design, is that you start the game here, you see this boss here, you're like, whoa, there's a boss, you fight him, you die immediately, you're like, whoa, what a cool boss, I can't beat him, right? And then you avoid him instead, you run around, you know, you go up in the world and yada yada, right? And then 10 hours later, you around this area, maybe doing this thing or whatever, you're here, and you remember that, you know what, that first boss that I didn't defeat, right, that I avoided in level 1, let's go back and kill that bastard. You go back again and you kill him, right? That has been a part of this game designs for the last 30 years, right? And again, I find it typical, especially in JRPG games, you can have this like super epic mega boss kind of close to your starting zone, right? Used to get that feeling for the player that this is a guy I can't defeat now, but I remember this thing and I can come back here later, right? So it's a very classic game design thing. Another game, even more, Soul Nomad and the World Leaders. So the whole premise is that you have these gods that are eating the planet, Galactico style, and you have to kill them and defeat them, right? There is one next to you when you start the game. It's going to destroy your hometown and continent, and you can go and fight him immediately if you want to in level 1, and he will happen to kill you because he's like level 1000, you're level 1, right? So it's basically like the last boss of the game is next to you in the beginning of the game, more or less. Pretty cool design actually, because you can go and fight him and you will die, right? You can't beat him, but you have this demon inside of your weapon or your soul or whatever. Think of, you know, typical anime, right? So you can summon your inner demon basically, but if you do that, you will actually win the fight, but the game still ends. So yeah, Soul Nomad is cool, bad. I think it's really cool actually, because basically you can go and fight again, right? This god, straight up a god, right? The last boss in the game on level 1. But to win, you have to summon your demon, right? Another god, and then you of course become 100% corrupted by the god. So you win the battle, but then you get an ending credit, right? Because you actually won the game, but you won the game by turning 100% evil, so the game is over, right? Because you have to sacrifice your soul, right? So now the Satan has taken on worse, so yeah. So you get a special ending, right? You get an ending. Or you have to go and fight the boss, like typically, without using your inner demon, and then you just lose, right? That's the game, right? And of course, you can come back then 100 hours later to actually beat the boss, right? Without using your demon, of course. So that's typical again, right? So would I say that Soul Nomad, for example, has bad accessibility because you can fight the main story last boss in the first minute of the game? No, that's part of the game's premise, right? If you want to fight him, you can measure how much demon power you have, right? You can also fight him in kind of half as demon power if you somewhat level 100 whatever, right? You might win without using that and so on. That's part of the actual premise and the gameplay, right? It's not part of accessibility. Accessibility would be that I don't know, you fight the boss and let's say that the boss attacks would be red color, right? Oh, I can't read that because I'm colorblind, or hard to read. That would be accessibility. Something like that, yeah. That would be accessibility. It's just kind of like no. So it's really bothering me seeing this word being muddled up. Another thing, that's the better in the video too, but one thing that I find silly too is that they're making accessibility to be like, but I want to know if an enemy is standing here. Yeah, but then you make the game easier. And I have to say that in this personal defense though, they are making this argument to some extent because they have like bad eyesight. So they're like, it's hard for me to see if an enemy is hiding here, you know what I mean? So I want some indicator for that. But if you have an indicator, you're obviously reducing the negativity. I mean, most dominant in the game, the catacombs, you have enemies hiding in every goddamn corner, right? So by adding that, you're making the game way easier. And accessibility and difficulty is completely unrelated. It's again the wheelchair thing, right? My grandma needs a wheelchair ramp to enter the house, right? Or have the carrying, right? Okay, that thing. But my grandma inside the house doesn't, for example, need whatever, right? Another wheel on the car. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. But I have to compare it outside the world. It'd be something like, let's say a door then, okay? A door is a door, right? You open the door by opening the door. How can you make a door more accessible than if person can reach it? Well, if you look at like handicap doors, they have easier access, right? Because they have a bigger momentum arm, which means that you need less force to open the door, right? So basically, if you're weak, right, physically weak, you can open the door. So yes, you can make a door accessible, right? You know what I mean? Because you have less power in it. But if the argument is that I don't want to enter the door, but I feel the argument they are making that I can't see the enemies, have the indicator. That's kind of like in the door example. In reality, it would be like I want someone to open the door for me or something, or not even that. It's more like I don't want to open the door. It's more like I don't want to have the door even to. Yeah, because the more comparable thing is like, you know, the enemy's hiding and so on, right? It's more difficulty. These guys, you know, coming up here, there's more difficulty right there. If I had some indication, again, those. It's a good example of it. If I had indication here where this guy's gonna spawn, the game would be way easier, right? Now I just upgrade my weapon here. It's very powerful. I wanted them, but yeah. See, if I knew they're gonna spawn there, the game would be easier, right? So it's not the same thing as accessibility. A game is a game more accessible because it's easier. Yeah, by indirectly, it is accessible, right? Because it's easy to handle, right? But suddenly you have a new video game. You have another game, right? So in the door example, the comparable thing would have been one of those automatic doors, right? You press the button and then the door opens for you. And then you have to open the door anymore. Something like that. But you have to even make it even more clever. It's like a controller pressing the button open it for you. Certainly you can make a door more accessible, right? But if you do that, it's not a good idea. And in a door example, you could argue and say, yeah, but isn't that bad if I could open the door that has just pressing a button or a thing, and I can open the door. The argument to be made is there, right? That would make the door less relevant as an obstacle in my life, right? So I could see why I want to do it. However, here goes kicker, right? Why is that different than Elden Ring opening a door? And I don't know, I make it very basic opening a door, but you know that's a good point because accessibility, again, right? As I work with someone in real life, comes from real stuff, right? Like I have worked with accessibility, for example, in left and right, right? Okay, we're gonna have this app, and then we're gonna flip it left to right to left, or whatever, right to so on. For example, we're gonna read it, right? So I've tried to make it as I think clear as possible, right? Using real life example instead of using IT example. But anyway, so in a real life example of, okay, I'm a weak person, I can't open doors, right, because they're heavy and so on. So I want to have an auto button doing it, so I can enter the building, right, or leave the building. Then having the auto button to open it makes it more accessible. Another way is imagine is having a bigger axle, right, on the lever, so you have less power. But even better because the button, you can press the button, open it, right, and so on. And yeah, honestly, it does make sense, accessibility. So I was saying that they're right with it. No, they aren't, because you put up to here, right, for playing the gamer. What's the difference in this thing? When I'm entering a house, what is the point of entering the house? The point is to get inside the house, right? The point is I am outside the house, and now I want to go inside, let's say, my grandmother's building. Okay? I want to go inside her house, right? The point is like meet my grandmother, right? That's a goal, right? The task, right? Talk to my grandma. The point isn't to be like outside the house or get into the house. I'm trying to burglarize. I'm trying to get into the house, right? So it's not really relevant for me if it's hard or easy to open the door, and that's secret. Because if you play Elden Ring, if the game now would point out where these ghosts are going, but it could be ghost point here, yeah. If the game here would help me, but accessibility, telling me where the ghosts are gonna spawn, which is kind of like having that lever on the door, right? And the button is basically like killing the enemies for me, right? Basically, yeah. What happens then is that it just removes the actual game, right? The difference is mostly that in real life, accessibility is about going somewhere else, right? The actual task is to opening a door, have an easy time in the bathroom, whatever, right? Whatever it is or you're sitting in like a subway, right? Or I'm pregnant, I need to sit down or whatever, yeah. Those stuff makes it more accessible to get where you want to get, right? But it's something there again, because if you're on the subway, the goal isn't to be actually the subway. The goal is to go from place A to place B, right? The destination is to get there, like going home after work or whatever. That's the actual task. But Elden Ring is a video game, and the video game isn't just about beating the game, right? the video game, the actual gameplay is what makes a video game fun, right? So by saying in Elden Ring that, okay, instead of having to open the door, you know, by using your hand, instead of having easy mode where you have like a bigger lever, okay, to open the door, I'm giving you the super easy mode where you press a button and the door opens for you. That's like basically removing the fights, right? You know, the first thing is basically showing the spawn. Next thing is like having no enemies at all, right? So if I had a button here on the controller that killed all the enemies, you know, people use that. What's left then? Only the lore, right? But the Elden Ring isn't one about the lore. That's a visual novel, right? So that's the issue, because if you tell me where they're gonna spawn, it lost me, of course. So usually what they complain about is just easy mode. They just want to have easy mode. But if you then have, as I mentioned, the open automatic door thing, well, now we're basically talking about, you know, killing all the enemies, right? That was a battery low here on my controller. But now this basically is killing all the enemies for me, right? Think about it, open the door automatically. Yeah, that is like oh shit. They have died in an hour, yeah. So that was clumsy though. But so I pick up the cable. There we go. The low energy. A blending distraction having low battery on my controller. No, but I mean, if I didn't die there, right, what's the challenge? No. Because Elden Ring is 95%, well, maybe not 90%, no, but Elden Ring is maybe like 70% the battle, right, the gameplay with fighting, 20% exploration maybe. I do kinda include, you know, exploration in this. When you explore, you have to fight a lot, right? So can I combine them, I guess, and then 10% maybe is the lore, right? If you have an insta kill button and everything, which is the same thing as opening the door automatically, that basically removes, I don't know, most of the gameplay, right? And then if you also add in easier mode on the map, if you want, right? Oh, I want the invitation and quest logs and this shit and this shit and yeah, but then you haven't game left anymore, you know? That's why people are so happy with the Elden Ring to some extent. It's like Zelda Breath of the Wild, because people are so tired of playing these boring open world games. They're not really open for that matter either. But that even if they were open, even if the horizon was more open, which really isn't an open world game, it's just, well, I mean, it's a pseudo open, I guess. But let's just say that it was, you know, open world, showing you all where to go and pick up here, go here, do these things, alright. People like this game a lot when it comes to its open world, because they actually open. You are allowed to do whatever you want. It's not the Pokemon handhold. It's the opposite of Pokemon games, or the Nintendo games, but it's Pokemon games. And it's kind of fun in that matter, because, you know, Breath of the Wild, I think it's very good, of course, and very similar to this game. One thing that's weird in this game, of course, is that people were shocked at Nintendo. Not only did they go away because Zelda is fine, but the Nintendo had the guts to say, you know, screw it, we're gonna have zero hand holding, it's just a game, do whatever you want, right? So I think that also more is about people who love this game, because it was so non-Nintendo what happened with Breath of the Wild, right? But that being said though, I think it's actually, because I'm playing because I'm an old man, right? I've been playing since the NES era. And the truth of course is that, yeah, it was Nintendo, but it's more like old Nintendo, right? It was like Nintendo Hard, yeah, Nintendo 8-bit, right? So people like me who play Nintendo 30 years, be like, whoa, this is my real Nintendo, right? Nintendo, when you gave me a great game with great gameplay, and you know, the hand holding is something that happened the later years, right? Because it became more of a, because obviously Nintendo in the beginning wasn't a child, you know, video game. It certainly aimed at children later and so on, of course. But in the beginning, Nintendo wasn't really aiming at kids, right? They were aiming at the family or whatever, and you know, general people. And then, of course, it became more of a kid-friendly, so on. Right? So they weren't actually that into handholding that much in the beginning. Not a level up. So build forward now. Difficulty, right? To make it more accessible, a bit easier. It's the same thing. It isn't the same thing. Absolutely not. Because if something makes the game easier, that's not accessibility. This makes the game easier. And indirectly, an easier game is more accessible, certainly. But that is indirectly, right? Accessibility has to be exactly to deal with stuff that you can't do otherwise. Like again, the wheelchair thing. But it's a good example of two. Let's put it this. So let's say you have a door, right? There's a button, you know, on the door and opens, right? Who can use that? Everyone can use that. Do I need to use that? No, not necessarily, but I can use it, right? And it makes it what's the problem? Maybe I have no arms or whatever, right? But it makes it generally is a functionality of a door, right? But if I add a wheelchair ramp to the door, now my grandmother can get to the door and then open it. You know what I mean? So accessibility is the wheelchair ramp, right? The automatic door opener is something that's nice to have for everyone, not a real accessibility. It's not the same thing. For example, where I live, or I usually not live, but I usually live, I have this like ship, right, to open up the doors, R&B ship, whatever it's called, R&B ships, whatever, something like that. I can't remember the acronym now. But anyway, I have one of those ones, and to open the door to this apartment complex, you have to of course use it, right? You know what I mean. But to do it then, you ship it right to the door. That will automatically open the door. And I mean literally, you would unlock the door and open it, right? It wouldn't just, it would also send out the door. See what I mean? It wouldn't just be like open. It would actually also open it for you. You know what I mean? Like automatically engineering open the door, right? So it will both unlock the door and open the door, right? And is that good for people in a wheelchair there? Of course it is, because they can blip and then it opens for them as well, right? But it's not an actual accessibility thing, because it just happens anyway. You see what I mean? And it basically makes opening the door easy mode, right? But again, then if a person has to be in a wheelchair to get to the door, and in that wheelchair ramp, that accessibility, right? Having an automatic thing happening, we also unlock the door. That is kind of like nice to have in life. Like in most games, right? You can have stuff that is like, if I let's say I pick up an item, the item is placed last, example in the inventory, right? That's just like nice to have. Okay, I know what's there. Also makes sense, because if you write code, a typical inventory in a video game, right, is just a list, right? It's one or more list. If you have bags in World of Warcraft, every bag is a list, right, basically. An array, whatever you call it, a vector. So of course every element in the list is an item, right? Or an object item, and every object item has the data of the item, whatever. Right? So of course if you pick up a new item, it's easier for the code to just say add the item in the edit list, right? So add here, next item here, and go backward. This is how it's gonna run, because it's easier to code like that. So it's both inherently easier for me and you to understand that if I put up an item, it's gonna get bottom in the list, right? Because it's easier to understand that it follows order, right? But coding is logic, right? And the reason why it's easier for us to understand that the item is now in the end of the list is because code is logic, and the brain is still wired, right, to understand logical process, right? So yeah, of course we think that adding the item last or first, I guess, also an argument, right? First or last is easy to understand, because it's like outside the realm, right? It's adding one boundary to the current list. And for a code example, it's easier too, right? Adding it first in coding will be much harder. You have to read, right? Have to move everything one step, right? Depends on how the code is, but it's actually much harder. Adding it last is so easy. It's just one function, putting in the last, right? If it has to be first, you have to replace, you have to strip the list, right? So it's going to be much harder. I have to sort everything backwards and so on. Yeah, it's much harder. And for example, we used to talk about code here, but if it's bubble sorting, okay? Bubble sorting, classic algorithm. Basically, you just take a bunch of numbers, or numbers here. For example, right? So you have bubble sorting is like a bunch of numbers in a list, order them after highest or lowest, right? Very basic coding here, algorithm, right? What you do is you have two elements, A and B. You compare their values, and if A is higher, say lower, you put it here, right? And then compare B is higher, nothing. Then you go like this. Now we're comparing B and C. Okay, C is lower, then we swap, right? Then we go through list. And then we go back again and the beginning. A and the new B, right? Which was C earlier. Is this lower? Yes, lower. Okay, swap again, right? You go to the list. And then you do this every time until you can go through the whole list of items and nothing is swapped. Then you're done, right? That's how you do a very typical sorting algorithm, to sort lowest to highest, or of course the rule is high to lowest, right? That's called bubble sorting, for example. Very, very simple, logical coding, right? Algorithm coding. Why do I say? Well, my point is that that's just how code works. Because most code, more or less all code is logic, right? Not always, but most of coding is just pure logic. And comparing two numbers, right? A or B, this thing is very, very logical, right? And it's very easy for us to want to have that functionality in a game. That okay, sort for me. Okay, give me okay, I have all the weapons. Okay, so I want to sort the weapons after highest damage, right, or lowest damage, or lowest weight, or whatever. Yeah, all of that stuff, right, that we do in coding, like sorting items or whatever, right, and size or weight or whatever, whatever attribute we're sorting at, whatever key thing the parameter we are caring about, right, all of that stuff is very easy to code and easy to implement and so on, but actually mostly it's because it's easy for us to understand it, right, from a human standpoint, because humans are intelligent enough to think in a logical pattern, at least most of us are, right. So if you see something like, yeah, I wanna get a stronger weapon, you can sort it then, after strength, right? Or like this thing here, example in the game, it automatically sort items, right, after its type, right? Very basic to science, right? So this is like colossal weapon, okay, that's one type, right? These are warhammers, one type, hammer, axe, twin blade, some inventory. Yeah, I'm kind of halfway through the game, right? So I have, I think, half the games. I don't know exactly, but I'm roughly probably halfway through the games. I have a bunch of weapons, right, but not all of them. But all the shields and so on. Yeah, this makes sense, right? And then the order here, you can look at the order here, right? It's basically, you look at the physical value, right? So 79, 84, it's a little slightly there, but there has some other attributes too in the game, though. How it's ordered, right? But mostly it is ordered, of course, after points value, right? Left to right, right? Right to left in Japanese and Arabic and so on. Right? But that just makes sense, right? We have this order, and we have sorted this thing here. This is the weaker shield, and it goes higher up, right? 76, 76, 100. It's about that percent. It just makes sense in our brain, right? So that complaining also, I think, is so weird, then, because some of the stuff to complain about, right, is that kind of stuff too. We use but that's how the human brain works, right? That's why it's done like this, because the human brain actually is apprehend as a new excitement, right? It's stuff that's intended. I saw from one day, I know who he is, though. I know him personally. I wish I wouldn't say who was personally, but he probably see tweets. UX designer. I know him personally, and it's kind of like his complaints are. He didn't actually. I feel he didn't elaborate enough, honestly. Regardless, though, what the issue was. But even if you did elaborate, because I kind of know what he's hinting to, and I know how he thinks. I know him personally. Like the elaborate is lacking, so I'm a little assuming what he thinks. But his issue, the tweet is going around, so right. But it's like the issue is mostly about stuff that is intended, right? It's like why for why isn't the game telling me where to go? That's the point of the game. They're putting that this but it's just like, well, that's part of the game. The game, like I said earlier, the game doesn't tell me where to go in this dungeon or this dungeon, but if I should even be in this dungeon, right? So one of the complaints that they had in the build video was that, I don't know if I'm too low level for the dungeon, right? I felt it several times through this game. Should I be here now? Like, the Kali thing. You ever heard that Kali chest, right? Oh shit. I'm obviously too low level for this, right? But isn't that part of the fun? Isn't that part of the fun? You get to a new area, and you assume that you are too low level. There's a Kali, obviously. But that's large part of the game's fun, right? Then you can run around. No, I was just saying that one of the things that I found really annoying, honestly, right? Is the whole idea of that, oh no, but the game doesn't tell me if I should be in this dungeon. I said earlier, right, should I be in Koya Manor? I don't know. I'm actually probably over level for this thing, right? But, should I be here? Who knows, right? You know when I figure it out? When I get there, That's what I'm thinking, yeah. Am I the only one who's most played this game? What you think is that, well, I don't know if I'm supposed to go to this dungeon. When I figure it out? When I go into the goddamn dungeon, right? If I see a dungeon or find a dungeon and I enter the dungeon or cast or anything, if I find a place to fight enemies, right? A new place. If I'm low or too low level or too high level you just do it faster, right? Because you can't do it. But if you're too low level, when you figure it out, you figure it out when you die in there, okay? that's kind of how it is, right? You enter the dungeon and then you do it. I don't want to do some item. I can probably jump down here, but I don't want to jump down yet. Let's go to the orbit. But anyway, yeah, like you figure it out, right, by doing the dungeon. I have faced bosses in this game, certainly. It's probably a boss here, what's next room? When I've been at several. Was it 2? Okay. So a new enemy I've seen before. Spellcaster Knight guy. But this is a separate, right? Am I too low level for this boss? How do I know it before I die on him? You know? I have to fight him to actually verify if I'm too low level for this. You know, I have to fight him to verify if I am too low level or not. I cannot know if I am too low level without fighting him. Right? And except when I got to, not more games, I got in very late because I went around the whole game. But, good example. The Wyrm, okay. I found the Wyrm pretty early, and then have to climb up. Spoilers here. You have to climb up right to the mountain thing and get to the magma Wyrm to get the great sword or so on. Whatever he drops the magma. He drops the magma sword, right? Magma Wyrm. I've killed it now. Though. I can show it to you after loads there. Which one I mean? That's nice. Very shortly. So you fight this massive Wyrm, right? And he drops this sword, yeah, magma Wyrm scale sword. Which is a pretty good weapon, but I do prefer the, you know, that I use now the grafted blade grade sword, which is Castle of Morn, right? So small spoiler here, a pretty foreign game, small spoiler, right? So if people care. So I'm talking about this boss. See, he's there, yeah, there it is. And the weapon I'm using is the best sword from down here, right? But anyway, so I was pretty early getting up to this area with the Magma Wyrm, and up here is like other sirens and bats and so on, basically. And I did it before I did this castle, even though I had done most area around before. So I was pretty early, right? And I got to the Magma Wyrm, and it was it, and I was like, you know, I'm just probably gonna actually not do this boss, right? Because I was hitting him, and I was like, okay, I can avoid him. The boss isn't terribly hard. He can boss around and spit fire and so on, right? It's not terribly hard, but I was like, whoa, I do like no damage to him, like comparable to his life points, right? I do so little damage to him. I'm like half the level. I'm like level 20. It's like a 40 boss or whatever, right? I can do him, but it's gonna take me forever. So whatever, screw it, right? I just left. I did that 3-4 attempts, and I was like, you know, I can kill the boss still, but it's like, oh, he's very high level. He's way too level, you know. I just leave, right? I leave. And I went down and, you know, I did some other area down here or whatever. Yeah, you just leave, right? So I think that complaint is makes me honestly frustrated. People complain that he's not accessibility because you can walk into a too hard boss. Yeah, but it's like it's an open world game. That's the beauty of world games. I'll give you an example before I play the boss again here. In FF12, for example, okay, FF12, right? You have these lighting kind of ball enemies, elemental enemies that fly around in different areas. They're very, very powerful, okay, so they can kill you in one attack enemy. Okay. But you can find them in almost every area that has like an environment type. So if you're in the desert, you have the fire one, of course. And if you're in the swamp, it's like a water one or whatever, right? It's like a snow one, so yeah. You can find them, and there's a dark one in some kind of, I don't know, undead castle or whatever, yeah. So you can find it in places. But in the beginning of the game, you have to avoid them, because they're super powerful. But you can avoid them, right? You can walk around them and so on. Does that make the game inaccessible? Because in the second desert in the game, an enemy can one-shot you. No, you have to walk around it. That makes the game world feel alive, you know. You have a game world in a desert, you can fight wolves and dragons, blah blah. You kill those guys, right? But if you have to fight the fire elemental, it's gonna kill you in one attack. So you have no chance, and it's just like AoE damage, yeah. And you know, you can't avoid it. So you 100% will die immediately, right? Fighting it on like level 10, you can't defeat it. But you can easily avoid it because the instant aggressive kind of flies around, and you have to kind of go at it, right, to just fight it. It's a good example of showing the player here is a later enemy, completely optional enemy. It's even a boss enemy. You farm them for like essential fight stuff. So, but you know, it's like it gives the game world a little more feeling of being alive, right? Because some enemies are actually very dangerous to me. Even at low level, I have to avoid them and so on. And in games Elden Ring, this is a very hard game, right? I don't find the game that hard, but you know, this game is known for being hard, right? So of course, if they make an Elden Ring open world game, or Souls open world game, I mean, they're gonna make the game have hard enemies. Again, right? You fight them in the beginning, yeah, you can avoid it. That's the essential part of this kind of games, right? It's make the game, because it makes the game world feel more alive. Nothing to do with accessibility. It's just a ridiculous complaint. You don't understand the game essence, right? And that's kind of what it bothered me, of course.
reading these tweets from a guy, I know him, from example, right? And he's like, you get stuck in the game, so on, yeah, because... But aren't you complaining like that, oh no, the game world is more alive and so on, or... Not to put constraints on play or whatever. Oh shit. Should have used my stomach earlier. It can't block me. I'm playing bad here. Playing bad, and I forgot to summon them either. But yeah, it's just like complaining that you can walk into an enemy that's too high level. Then you're basically complaining about almost every JRPG, right? Because Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, and so on, they all do it. They all have their games where they have really strong enemies in early areas, because again, that's a huge part of these games, right? You find a boss enemy that you are supposed to avoid, right? Because it's a cool thing to do. You can, and especially in Elden Ring, you actually can defeat them, right? It's even cooler because, again, right, in the more turn-based role-playing games, of course, you can't even avoid attacks, right? Motivation was at the beginning again. So, yeah, in Elden Ring, you can even beat some of them, right, earlier. That's part of the game too, right? Like, I'm getting this boss, it is now, right? No matter what happens, right? This was so much bit. It's stuck, I think, behind oh, it's a good combo. Oh yeah. Now we got him, yeah, here we go. There's a wall, baby. Oh yeah. Classic. Street Fighter here. Yeah. Get him into the corner, baby. Get him in the corner. Just keep punching them. There we go. 3 attempts. Oh, yeah. Some bonus boss, right? But that's what I mean. What if I was too low level when I got here? Would I be like, oh no, this game sucks, man. They just warned me that I was supposed to be level 50 against this boss. It would be ridiculous. I would use Return later, yeah. I would just go and grind somewhere else, just more the boss, right? Get a few levels, maybe upgrade my sword, right? It's +6. Get it to +7, right? Whatever, you know, and come back, right? It's just ruin the whole experience. But that's why I think it's so sad when I read that comment for this person I know then, because he's complaining about the game, right? In the weirdest way, and it's just like, but if you really believe that, he didn't elaborate enough, I would say, in his defense. But if you really believe that, aren't you just lack empathy to understand what people want? Like, every game can't be, you know, like the AAA, boring, whatever, blah blah game. It's never gonna be anyone. No, but I mean, it's like some of the games has to have the feeling, right? Of, for example, I like fighting games. You know, for example, I like fighting games. Fighting games is a genre I always love, right? Isn't part of gaming that you can have different genres. Fighting games are very hard, okay? Fighting games is much harder than this game. The issue with fighting games with this game is that every game we have multiplayer it. It's almost always going to be harder, right, than any single player game. Because if you fight another player, and I know this game has multiplayer, but you know what I mean. Yeah, this has multiplayer. But talking about, you know, more like games are only made for multiplayer, like Street Fighter, right? It's basically a pure multiplayer game. It has a single player thing, but you know, everyone hates it. A game all focused on, you know, different characters, different abilities, and PvP and so on. Yeah, it's always going to be much harder than basically any PvE game, right? You're also going to push the limit much more to how you beat it, right? The strategies, when to Hadouken, when to do Sonic Boom and so on, all the time. Sidri can always like that. But anyway, my point, I think, stands, right? And that is a game that is very, very few actually like, right? I remember I was in college, I had at my graduate school, even, and I had a see, but it wasn't 4. So Ran, of course, is which I want to meet. It wasn't 4. It was SFS Tekken was released. I think when I was in university. Maybe it was 4. 4 was released when I was in university. Okay, maybe it wasn't 4. There was like Super 4 whatever. Yeah, 4 did release when I was in university. But I would say it was like Super 4 or something. Okay, I don't know why I made the point. It doesn't matter so much. But anyway, so Seafighter 4 Super was released when I was in grad school, I believe. And I was, of course, all hyped and excited, right? You know, I'm a nerd. I'm like, oh my god, Street Fighter! Finally, I can play this character. Poison didn't appear, it's just an AE. But like, oh, I can finally play my best girl, Poison, or whatever. That's how I found an AE. I was like, oh my god, so sexy. Poison Shaman! You know, so yeah. And my classmate was like, I can't believe you like fighting games. And yeah, basically. He was like giving me a hard time for being what a douchebag. Honestly, what a douchebag, right? Yeah, first of all, he's a douchebag. We're sitting there at lunch break, right, at college, grad school. So we, you know, I say grad school because it's important to point out that this guy is an adult, right? It's like 25, right? You know what I mean? It isn't like a kid, you know. So I'm like, man, I'm so excited about playing Poison and stuff like that. She's so sexy. My favorite character, transcendent character, love her character. She's my freaking girl, you know, basically, right? And he's just like, fighting games are for idiots. This is a button mashing. If you like them, you're a moron, right? So. Of course, he's a douchebag. I hate it for him, generally speaking, right? Because why does he care? You know, if I like Street Fighter, or whatever, if I like playing Poison, you know, whatever, yeah. Just why can't he be like, that's good for you? He has to be like, I like Dota, you know, yeah. So first of all, that's not douchebag. Don't be that guy. I actually had a coworker that's even worse than him. As a side note, I had a coworker that I used to play a lot of fighting games with. So he's a interesting guy, generally speaking. He's a very good fighting game, one of the best fighting game players in the country when he worked and so on. Very good player, top player in the world, extremely good player, won tournaments and so on. So he played a lot of fighting games at lunch break, right? He was really annoying because we were working together when Dragon Ball Z was released and so on. Played it mostly. But anyway, one fighting game I had to play at the time still though was Street Fighter 5, right? And I have to say I like Guilty Gear more than Street Fighter, okay? You guys get freaking awesome. So Street Fighter is my favorite fighting game, but I liked Street Fighter 5 at the time. I played it a lot compared to his own, right? And he was a douchebag also because short story here, but short story. He was always complaining to me when I played on lunch break. Maybe because he was to play his game or whatever. But it was weird because he would come in and be like, "Oh, you're playing Street Fighter again? You know it's the best fighting game, right?" I'm like, yeah, whatever, right? And he. That kind of guy, you know, also a douchebag. Like, you know, yeah, every guy at the time I'm gonna play this game on lunch break, you gotta tell me it's a bad game, and of course every time but the most I have to say here with this person, I won't too much about him, it's interesting for this topic here, ability, but just to point out, the person was annoying too because he would always. I got tired of his behavior, right, after a few times. So I told him that, oh, what game do you play? That's just crap, right? You know, I was like, you know, he's giving the same, you know, medicine back. Oh, you're playing Dota? That game is for noobs, man. LOL is bad. But I also been joking with him mostly, but I was doing that crap back. He was like, oh, you can't say that about Dota, but why do you say that for? I was like, because you keep complaining. But it's the same thing, you know. So that guy is obviously more into it because if I immediately his behavior back to himself, he would be like, oh, you can't say that. I call the manager. I was like, what's wrong with you? So he's a douchebag and also whining hypocrite. But anyway, this guy at school then. Yeah. For example, I think of a guy that's like, I don't like fighting games. And I'm like, yeah, okay. That's your thing. I like them. Good for you, right? Bad, yeah, whatever. Damn it. Oh. Maybe I should be horse here. Can I be horse here? One left. Here we go, come on. Coward! Oh damn it, I thought I was too early. Those are very slow but strong weapon, right? I'm mostly strength, you know. Yeah, she's gonna fly away until later. Small game. Okay, good. So yeah, some dragons escape you, right? And then they have to fight at one place. But anyway, my coworker there, perfect example of, it's like, you know, why can't he be happy that I'm happy, right? Why can't he just accept that I like something he doesn't like, right? And that's a big issue I think with most people comment Elden Ring. Not this guy working at this game company that I know. It's like, oh, people don't like Elden Ring even though it has bad UI or whatever, UX on. Oh, it's unfair, right? Like, no, some people actually don't find it bad. They don't have to tell them exactly what to do all the time, right? Hand-handling and so on, yeah. Why can't people like different things, right? So, I see that a lack of empathy, right? You know? He's just like, if you don't like what I like, if they don't want what I want in a game, they're wrong, right? You know what I mean? So that's like empathy. He wants people to think that he thinks, right? He wants people to think that you need to have all this UI crap and tell you to go and point and so on. And if you don't have that, well, it's a bad game. That's his opinion, right? So he's like, if people agree with him, they're wrong, right? You know what I mean? He can't see that people want something different, right? But I think it's easier to explain the issue, right, when it comes to genres. So you should point it out again, right? My classmate is getting all pissy over me being happy that the latest Street Fighter is out, right? And I'm just like, first of all, I play it, you know, to some extent professionally, right? Competitively, for money and so on. At that time, a lot, at that time for that matter. Basically, I played fighting games, StarCraft and so on, but most of the fighting games all the time. After school, right? Lots of tournaments, money match and so on. So it's also a little bit of like a side gig, right? So even more so than just for hobbies. But still though, right? So I'm doing that. And his first score can't be happy that I'm happy. He has to be the guy, oh, you like that movie? The movie is shit, you know. And to some extent I think that's fair to be in that way. But not when it comes that he's... But the issue here is, I mentioned that because it's a genre issue. If I said that, oh, my favorite movie is like the Pork, you know, it's Porky's Revenge, that's my favorite movie, okay? If I said that, and he's like, that's like a weird sexual movie, you're a pervert, you know? That would be a fair critique, right? But the issue was like, I like fighting games, you know? I like different fighting games. He's like, fighting game are for idiots, you know what I mean? So the huge issue is that I think it's completely fine, I do that too, right? To say this so much, you need someone tell me, oh, that's my favorite game, and I'm like, I don't know, that game, those issues, you know. For sure, you should be able to critique people. But he's critiquing the genre, you know what I mean? That's the big issue. He's just saying a blanket statement. If you like fighting games, you're a moron. That's his kind of his opinion, right? And that doesn't make any sense, because of course there are good and bad fighting games. So there are good role-playing games, or whatever this game, action role-playing games, whatever it is, yeah. Same thing, right, you know? There are, Elden Ring is an action role-playing game, and there are other bad action role-playing games, right? So it doesn't mean that, you know, you have kind of all the same thing, right? So that's what the main issue is, right? He's a pissy that I'm enjoying a genre he doesn't like, right? So because he does that behavior, he's like, oh, every fighting game is bad or whatever, they're all crap. I immediately do the class thing that, oh, so you suck, right? Get good. You know, I used to do that to get good. This is like over 10 years ago, it's like 15 years ago, right? Yeah, it's like 40 years ago. Yeah, 14 years ago. And I used to do the classic, I do in the get good before get good was thing, right? So I'm just like, oh, you suck at it. No, I don't. Well, it sounds like you suck at them, right? Because you're complaining about them, you don't understand them. No, it's just like button mashing. And then I like button mashing. So you think you can just press the button and beat me? He's like, yeah, they're all, you know, crap games, no skills in them. So that's his opinion. So I'm like, okay, sure. You know, I play a lot of money matches on these games. You know, let's play like $100 game, right? You can pick whatever character you want, and I pick the character I want, right? Or you can even pick my character. I'm just like, you can even pick my character. Honestly, you know what? You can even, I can play random, okay? I can play random, doesn't matter. You're so bad at this game, I'm gonna beat you easily, okay? And he's like, oh, but you're like a real pro player, this isn't fair. That's not fair. You just told me that there's no skills fighting games, that is button mashing. And now I'm telling you that if it's so random that it's button mashing, you can play me. Oh, actually, okay, whatever. If it's so random, right, it should be about 50-50. In case it's about 50-50% chance you win, right, if it's random, so a button match random. So let's just play like best of 5 games, right, or best of 10 games. And if I lose a single game, you win, right, you know, because 50% random chance, right. Obviously, you should win half of the 5 games, so you get the easy money for you. He's like, no, I mean, yes, you're actually afraid of fighting me, even giving you way better odds to get the money, right? Because it's 50% random science. For she doesn't do it right, again, obviously he knows his bullshit, right? And then because he kept being so douchebag, right, in the beginning, I just kept hammering him. I was like, okay, tell me the truth. You suck at them and get good and so on. And eventually he was like, okay, fine. I don't have time to learn the combos. I don't have time. He literally told me, I was like, F you, I don't have time to sit down and train for this game mechanic, train for this combo with this character for 10 hours. And they're shitty games because, no one has time for that, right? And I was like, okay, so you're openly admitting you suck at the game, and the reason you hate Street Fighter is because you can't learn the combos, because you don't have time to learn the combos, which is of course the wrong thing. As a side note, if you play Street Fighter game, Street Fighter, you just learn what's called the cookie cutter combos, right? Almost every character has a pretty simple combo you can learn that might not do the best damage, right? Let's say play Ryra, the main character, There are several similar combos with Ryu or Ken or so on, right, or whatever. They're pretty easy to do, and you can always do them in almost every situation. So the key thing to play on like pro level, right, or close to pro, is to know what is the best combo to do always. Okay, you know what I mean? And I mean that is that in situation A is this combo, in B this combo, so right. That's how a really good player plays the game. But a basic like silver gold player, you can just learn one combo that does high damage no matter what, right? Not the highest damage, but high damage. Train that combo to begin with a new character. With almost every fighting game, that's kind of how it is, right? So if I play extra low, and I'm arguably the best extra low in the country, whatever, in Guilty Gear Strive, right? Extra low has this kind of like, it has a circle thing attack. So it's like, how's the combo? It's, you can do it the waist, but it's basically like you open it with like slash, it's like slash, high slash, squash, circle back, high slash, right? That's kind of cutter. And if you jump in, you can do like high slash, high slash, cutter, high slash. That's kind of like the combo. It's just spamming high slash between those two. It's super simple. And it takes me like, 5 minutes for the combo. Do this combo. And then if you do it for the 10 hours, whatever, you do it for 3 hours. Then it's like, okay, now I'm gonna do a better combo. So I do the same thing, jump in, high slash, high slash, quarter, high slash. No, I cancel that, right? Cancel another high slash, or a slash, high slash. Then you poke it with a punch or whatever. It's called punch, yeah, you do that, throw it forward, and so on. And then you can build on that, right? But learn to do a basic combo that does, like, say, 200 damage. It's very, very easy. But you want to do that like 240 damage, that's hard. Doing that extra damage, and doing that 300 damage, that costs you a full meter and anything, that is very hard, right? But you can only do it once per game anyway, right? So learning the 200 combo damage, you can do it like every fighting game, and you can almost win most matches with that, right? At least I think it's like, some kind of master league players, right? But more or less. But anyway, side note, but this guy basically is just like admitting that he's not want to spend the time to learn the game, right? So every game is too hard for him, it's a bad game, right? This is like 15 years ago when he's basically used the original, game is too hard for me, it's a bad game. The whole genre is bad fighting game. They're too hard, yeah. Ooh, right. So really pathetic, to say the least, right? Oh, it's a elevator, right? But yeah, this is usually what it's about, right? People complaining about, I can't beat this boss. I need, Marcus. It's like, okay, you suck, right?
Guys, subscribe and so on. Long video there. Mostly from my stream, right? But I think I covered it pretty well, and I guess I was playing pretty an easy dungeon for me, right? At the time, so I can sit there and just talk, like, whatever, this boss isn't that hard, right? But I think one thing that I really feel that I want to iterate again here, right, is that that's a good example of it, right? I found a dungeon. The dungeon wasn't that hard, but it was too hard. That's not an accessibility issue. And some of the games I mentioned, right? Final Fantasy 12, right? Dragon Quest and so on. Are those games then in accessibility? Do they lack accessibility? Because you can fight the boss too early, or like Soul Mare, the best seven probably, you can fight the last boss immediately. Is that an accessibility issue? No, it's just like a game design issue, or a game design, in my opinion, a game design, good thing, right, in game design, as I covered in great detail. So I'm just like, it is a typical thing, right, that they love to question from software games, right? Because I don't see these developers, right, so to speak. I don't see them complaining about Final Fantasy, right? You know what I mean? What Elden Ring is more famous and so on. But honestly, as the last point, if we went this far in the video, so you're probably on my side, right? I think it's slightly a bit that some of these so-called, game developers or designers and so on, right? because I know someone personally, they usually aren't gamers, okay? That's it's kind of the sense of it, right? Like I work with one of this person, and it is sometimes the extent of them actually not playing that many games. You know what I mean? So, as I mentioned again in the video, right, talking a lot about JRPGs, Japanese roleplay games, having this feature heavily for the last 30 years, right? It's nothing new for me, being a huge JRPG fan, right, that this feature is here. And I worked on some JRPGs in my life, right? F7 Remake is a game, except I worked a little bit more. And this is nothing new, right? But these people, honestly, this is my, I'm guessing here, a little personal last bit of the video here, but I think they haven't actually played these games. You know what I mean? Because I know one of these guys, I know their kind of friend circle and so on, right? And many of them are like just playing the modern games, right? They kind of grew up playing like Dota or something, and they didn't ever play these games, and they don't actually have a very good library of video games. For example, when I worked, not with this person, but with his friend that I know, that's friend of friend, right? His friends were hard to work with. I was like a lead game designer, and it was hard to work with them because I said to them, oh, it's like this game, right? And they're like, what game? Oh, it's like this game. The mechanic is like in this game. And they're like, haven't played it. I'm like, oh, it's shit. So because I try to use other game examples, right, to explain a game mechanic very often when I work, because it sounds lazy, but it's a great way, right, to communicate to your coworkers. Oh, I want to take this mechanic, let's call it the auto revive mechanic, right, from say League of Legends, Cillian, okay. I want to have that mechanic where you can buff an ally and revive again, right, in my game, okay. So I'll give an example. This is like a Cillian in League of Legends, right. Of course, that game people have played it. Oh yeah, Cillian. So they oh, I understand, and then everyone, the coders or whatever, they get it, right, yeah. But I was like, oh, I want to have this mechanic from Final Fantasy. They're like, Final Fantasy? What's that? I'm like, the most famous JRPG ever franchise. Whatever, it's also in Dragon Quest. And they're like, Dragon Quest? I was like, you're right, it's my fault. Of course you don't know Dragon Quest. If you don't know Final Fantasy, you don't know Dragon Quest. I was like, yeah, now you mention it, you're not gonna get that either. It's a little bit like Civilization, and they're like, is that one of those strategy games? Oh my god, Jesus Christ. That's honestly been my experience working with these kind of, I'll say people. I'm generalizing, but I think there's a big reason why as well. But anyway, press like so on. If you want me to make more videos, right, about gaming and so on, right, please leave a comment below. Otherwise, have a good day, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.